Hello, my name is Dimitri. I'm with the Ugears US, Ugears.us, that's our website, and we're going to be going through the assembly of Ugears mechanical model 20-minute timer. So this is the model here, and we're going to go ahead and start just by opening it up, covering a few basic things. So the first thing obviously is to break off the plastic and open up the box. So this is one of the models that is intermediate level of hardness, and just because the setup time and setup itself, it might take a little bit and a little bit of figuring out to do. So we gonna try to do that today in one shot and one video. So the tools that I'm gonna need for the assembly are as follows. I do have a box cutter knife just to cut out some pieces, cut the toothpicks for these purposes. I do have a precision file. I'm gonna use this one. It's kind of flat on one side and then a little bit rounded off on the other side. This is just to clean off some of the parts. I might use some other ones, but they're really not necessary. You can also use a sandpaper instead of the file, which also works fairly well. I do have tea candle. This is wax for lubrication of the parts. The reason for it is just to make the gears go a little bit smoother, and it is highly recommended to use it. I do have a set of toothpicks just in case. Normally there's enough toothpicks in the kit that come there, but just in case, if you run out, sometimes it does happen because they do break. Just a regular toothpicks that you can buy at any grocery store will work. In this case I have from Target, and it's 800 count toothpick made in China. I mean, they all standard size, so can't go wrong with these. And then just in case, I do use a sled of pliers. Sometimes if the toothpick gets stuck, just use the pliers to pull it out. So these are my tools, and let's go ahead and start with the assembly itself. Alright, so here's our manual. We pull the toothpick and these out. I'm gonna put these on the side so you don't see it. And the manual, the first thing starts off, obviously do not use lit candle because of the fire, and obviously do not push the toothpicks on the sharp end. Just kind of use your fingers to push it from the side, because obviously you're gonna hurt yourself. The symbols that you're gonna see through the manual are, this one is to recommended to use the tea candle, so please use the candle wax to lubricate the part. This one shows that you do need to make sure that the size is correct, and usually the way to size it shows you right in the manual. This where you need to use the file or the sandpaper. Use the knife to break off the toothpicks, and this is make sure you pay attention at where you see that sign, exclamation mark, which makes sense. When you see that add plus, that means it shows you that there are additional parts available. And this one, it's make sure to cut out or be very careful with the part that is inside the board, because it is pretty delicate, so it's recommended to use knife to cut it out. So that's what it is. And some of the round gears you do need to sand. As I said, I use the file. This is just gives you the dimensions of the toothpick, and this is the first part which used for measuring. So we need to find that one first, and pull it off the assembly. And this is on the board without the number, so where you see that big timer piece, this is the part right here, it's part number 0. Another point that I wanted to make, you do see the different type of surfaces. So this is a back surface, I would call it a back surface, and this is a front surface. where it's a little bit cleaner and nice and smooth. So the laser does enter from this side, so you see the cut is a little bit more burnt, or here it's much cleaner, and then if you look at the writing, it is the correct way, versus here it's in the reverse direction, so and mirrored. This would be the back, this is the front, and when you push, I push the parts out, so that is a recommendation, because you do have the fibers, and at the cut, especially at the connection points, sometimes you will pull the fiber if you go the opposite way, and you will actually pull it from the front face, not gonna look very good. So I usually just push the parts out, that way you prevent, you can kind of see these fibers sticking out here, so you can just break them off with the finger, or you can use the file to file them off. So that way it looks much cleaner and much nicer. So let's go ahead and start with the assembly, and gonna go with the number 1. Obviously here it tells you to pull that measuring piece out, and then now we do need board, I would assume that would be board number 2, front face, back face, and we do need parts number 1, 4, 3, and 2. So this is right here, front face and then back face. So some boards are just popping out, so you can just put them on the side, make sure you don't lose them. So here, that's number 1, here's number 2, little 2-piece, and then 3 and 4 are pieces in this other block. So I'll just put the rest of the board to the side and pull these pieces out separately. So we got, if you break it, the board itself is not a problem, just make sure you don't break the parts. Let's go ahead and start the assembly. We do have this, it's gonna go from the back, and we got 2 number 4 pieces going with the shorter and thicker, I would say, boss into the gear. This is number 3. Just make sure you put them the right way, otherwise they're not gonna fit perfectly in. And then you got these 2 pieces go right over these. So 1 and 2. Clean up the fibers a little bit, and then that's the first toothpick that we're using, and it's gonna go right in here. And once again, try it out, see how well it goes. Sometimes it does get a little bit tough to come in. In order to pull it out, once again, I do recommend to use the pliers, because sometimes they are very tight. So it's, in this case, as an example, goes in. Also, once in a while I would go through the toothpicks and just see which one looks thinner, because they do vary in size a little due to the manufacturing reasons, and I'll just try a different one and see how well it goes in. That may give me a little bit more luck. Another recommendation is, if it doesn't go smoothly in, to use a little bit of wax, because wax will help to slide it in. So as you see, I can push it a little bit further using the wax. And then also you can use that tool 0 that we used to use, a little bit small hole on here, small hole that you can use to help you to push the toothpick through. So we're gonna go ahead and push it, and then we're gonna use number 1 in order to determine the length of it on the opposite end. So as you can see, I pushed it a little bit further, so I gotta pull it out a little bit and just keep on measuring until you get it to the right size. Now I have it perfect right now, so we're good to go. And then we need a part number 5, which is also on the same board that we just used. It's right in here. So, and once again, I'm gonna push it from the back, nice and careful, nice and easy. So we got a little arrow, and the front face we're gonna put here, and it looks like it doesn't matter how far it goes, no, or which direction it points at this time. So just push it in. Once again, you can use a little bit of wax just to make it go a little bit easier, and you have to wax the ends anyway. So, and here the measurement should go also number 1. So I'm gonna go push it a little bit further. So I hold the toothpick in the middle and just work the arrow a little bit in. So I got it a little bit over. So I'm gonna redo it a little bit. And here we go. So we're all set. Number 1, measure it, and as you can see, I have it right in the spot. No, I apologize, that's from the other end. So the other end is 1. And then for the toothpick, it's actually, I went a little bit too far. That's a little cut out on here on the side, so I have to push it out a little bit. And measure it in. Here we go. So that's using this spot. So we need to wax this portion, this back of the toothpick. They already waxed because I used the wax to push it through. And then we need to wax, recommended to wax the gears, and also that's where I would like to use the file. And the connection points, you just file it off a little bit just to clean it off so it doesn't interfere with the operation and for the gears, mechanical connection of the gears. So I'm using the file just to get the connection points out, and I would use one of the toothpicks to get some of the candle wax onto the gears. So you might, it does take a little bit of time, but it's worth it just to make the operation a little bit smoother. And you'll feel once you get the wax on your hands, you'll feel it melting a little bit, so it's perfectly fine. I'll cover it a little bit easier on the gears. So just go through all gears to get the wax on all of them. Just to make sure that we have the full coverage, and can clean it off a little bit later or clean it off right away. Usually right away will work a little bit better because you might forget to do it later. And I need another piece, and just to get it fully covered. Alright, so I got all the gears waxed, and we're gonna go into the next step of our assembly. So this is number 1, and we'll put it here. It's all good to go. Now we're going into the assembly number 2, or page 5. Here it's same board. We're using number 1, 3, 4, which is also on the other board, and these 2 gears, which is number 6. So let's go ahead and push it through. Push the whole thing out to make sure the rest of the board is not in the way. And then 3 and 4. So the process of pushing is a little bit, takes some time. You want to make sure you don't break the pieces. So just be careful and apply a little bit of pressure. Once again, with the thicker boss on the inside, they should be opposite of each other. So 2 number 3s and 2 number 4s. That happens. Don't get too frustrated. you go, and then 2 number 6s, and they should be in the same direction, so you want to make sure that all the gears do line up, because if they don't, you have a little bit of an issue. So it's just like this. Once again, find a toothpicks that looks somewhat slim, and put it in, and you can use a little bit of wax as a lubrication just to make it go in a little bit smoother. So in this case, I'm gonna try a different toothpick. This one does look a little bit thicker. But also, my fingers are covered in wax right now, so it's also creates a little bit of an issue of pushing it in. So I'm gonna try to use this tool and see if I can push it in using that. And then when you do that, you're just gonna be a little bit careful to make sure you don't snap the toothpick as you're pushing it in. So it also has to be one, so I did go a little bit too much in. And let's see, there we go. So we got right at 1. And then we do need to wax one side of the toothpick, the other side of the toothpick, all these gears here, and these little gears on the smaller side. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean this off a little bit with a file. Just to make sure any kind of imperfections there are all gone by the time we assemble it, because you don't want the gears to get stuck during the operation. Once you start operating, it does take some time for the gears to settle, so it has to go through a few cycles. So if you don't get the perfect operation right from the beginning, don't get too frustrated. It will come later, but we'll get to that point later when we actually working closer to the end and trying to get it operate. So let me get a good nice thick piece of wax so I can put it on the gears. If you don't want to go one by one gear, you can just stick it in here and get the coverage like that. But I prefer to go one by one. That makes it a little bit cleaner. Not much, but just a little bit. And then I'm gonna wipe everything else off. My candle is a mess already by now, but once again, it's just wax. So we got that. And then the little one. And I'm going to clean off the excess just to make sure that it looks decent. It doesn't have that excess wax too much on the gears. It's not going to look very good. And here we go, we got our second gear ready. Not too bad for now. So next step, page number 6. Take a different board, and this is the one. We got parts number, apologize, that's not the one yet. Oh yes, it is. So we got parts number 9, 10, 7, and 8. So we're gonna need these. So as I mentioned, push the gear out, and then in order to prevent, went from the wrong face, in order to prevent the pulling of the fibers, it was like in this time, you want to push these little pieces out from the good face. So the fiber will stay on gear itself rather than on that piece that you're pushing out. So this, and then we do need 9, 10, and 8. We're gonna push the blacks out. And then pretty much is the same thing, and just with a thicker boss, go into the gear, thinner one on the outside, and then these two gears go right over it. And make sure they match, and then a toothpick. Did wax it right away. And then we're going to use that little hole to push it in. Make sure you don't put your fingers on the way of the toothpick, because you might get cut with this sharp end. So here we need to go to number 2. So and I just broke it up. So this is a perfect, I guess, perfect example of using the pliers, where when you do need to pull the toothpick out, because they're not going to come out very easy. So use the pliers and make sure you grab it nice by a thicker part, otherwise you might break the gear. You gotta push it out here too. So I'm gonna get this out and put it to the side as a garbage. So I'm gonna start from a different side, as we need a shorter piece on smaller end. And try number 2. And we got it almost perfect. I'm not gonna even try to go a little bit further. It's probably less than a millimeter difference. Nice and perfect. It's sticking right up to the number 2. And then once again, we gotta wax it. The gear itself, the toothpick on both sides, and this little gear. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the connection points clean up first. Just to make sure there's no fibers on the way, and they're nice and smooth. We got it. And then put a wax on all the gears. So I'm gonna start with the small one, and as I said, just go one by one, putting a little bit on each gear. Tedious job, takes a little bit of a time, but your timer will operate flawlessly afterwards, because it does give it nice and smoother operation than just having it go without the wax. Once again, you can use a regular candle and maybe just a smaller candle, and kind of put it on every single gear by just holding it. whichever way you prefer. I mean, there is no right or wrong way of doing it, and I'm just wiping off excess wax. To make it look a little bit better. There you go, we got 3 gears now complete. And on the same page we have a little bit small pieces with this little block, which is 30 and 31. I'm just going to push the block out, and we get two big and 31s, and then 3 number 31s. And I'm gonna check if the video is still going. We're good to go. And let's see, also toothpick. We're gonna go with the 31, and now you can have that nice little face on the outside so it's visible. And then now I'm gonna use the tool, and pushed it a little bit too far, but it doesn't matter, then I have to enter from the other side. So I'm gonna go number 30, and I do need to wipe the fingers off. To go a little bit more onto the toothpick, and I guess I have to do it one by one. Then it's number 2. We're a little bit short, so we gotta push it a little bit further in. So as I mentioned, just make sure you do it one by one and you don't break off the toothpick, which I just did. So we have to redo it. Good thing the holes on these are broken in by now on these parts, and we're gonna use a different toothpick and do it one more time. So this, I can even feel it's either the hole is broken in already or the toothpick is a little bit thinner, because I do feel it going in much smoother and much easier. And as you can see, a little bit of wiggling that needs to be done just to get everything right and perfect. So number 2 one more time, and we're perfect right in there. So got another assembly completed. Going to the next page, clean up the table off a little bit here. And this is the board. They're not numbered, but actually they are. It looks like 50.437. So this is board 4, numbered You got 1 piece, 2, 3, these 4 pieces, and that little round one. So go ahead and push these out. I'm gonna push the whole block out. There you go, and doing the bigger one. Then number 14, tiny, small one, small piece, another big one. And then this little round piece. We do need one more, which is number 11 right here. Go ahead and push it out. Then that goes through the little half round. I'm gonna push it, put it on the front face, all the way in. And then I'm gonna put one at a time. And then use the toothpick to go through this hole right at the top. There you go. And we got it somewhat most of the way in. And then just clean it off. Be careful with the knife. Nice and easy slice, cut. Once again, you should be able just to break it off, and make sure they're not below the at least level with the surface, so it doesn't stick out. Looks nice and clean. And then we got 2 number 16s and 2 number 17s. Go right in. Got a big piece of toothpick here, and there you go, 2 16s. With a longer, thicker boss on one side. Guess it doesn't matter which way they go, but it might. So 16s are one way, and then 17s are on the opposite. There you go. Next page, we use number 2, which is right here, and we put it on these little 16s and 17 bosses. And then we have take one of the toothpicks, use the measuring tool, and we measure, which is about half, and cut it right at the boss. Started a cut, and then you can just break it off after you start it, and they should be about the same length, which they are. And we use number 18 from the board, and get these 2 in. On the side holes, and then the depth on it should be going right up to this edge. And then main toothpick's gonna go in also, and then we put these from the opposite end right into the 3 holes that are on that assembly. So it looks like it. We have to put it in first and then measure it up. So it looks like I got this one was a little bit in, and then we gotta measure it at number 3 on a measuring tool. So I gotta go a little bit deeper. And that's about right. And then pull this out. And get the measurement of the other 2 toothpicks. So we're gonna go a little bit either deeper on this. Measure into the wrong part. There you go. Another assembly is complete. Go next gear. That's a bigger one. Number 23, but we're gonna get to it later, so we need number 19 first. And with 2 20s, which are right here, I'm gonna push the whole block out. And this one does have the exclamation point. Make sure you put the parts in correctly. So number 20s, gonna go on a shorter part of the cross, and then 21 no longer. Got it the wrong way. With the thicker bows on the inside and a little piece sticking out on the outside. Here you go. And then number 22. That one, I need to make sure that these circles that are marked on here are on the outside. And then obviously you'll be able to put it only one way, but they have to face out. And then you use the gear number 23, which is the big gear, on the same board. And let's see, we enter also the direction of the rotation, looks like this way. So we need to make sure these little flanges bosses are facing the clockwise direction. If you put this one from the out from this end. I guess I can find the words of how to describe it. So we need to make sure these teeth are facing counterclockwise direction, and these teeth are facing clockwise direction. And just put it in like this. And then you gotta use a little bit of the motion to get it inserted. Just like that. Then we have another number 19. And then number 24. This is a delicate piece. So when you push it out, be gentle or use a knife to cut the connection points. So number 19 goes from this end, just to hold everything together. And then the arrow, there's a little arrow marked on it. It has to go face or point to the clockwise direction, and make sure you enter it that way. And then we want to put it well, you have only one way to insert it, so just like that. Then you should be able to rotate the whole assembly the opposite direction. So the gears, the big gear is going to go one way, and then the air is going to go the other direction. There's a little fiber that gets stuck on the gear. And now when you go into the next page, where we put, gonna put this one aside, the gear assembly, we got number 27 and 28. So once again, careful, because there's a little bit of a delicate piece on the side. And then we also need 25 and 26. I'm gonna push them right out. And they do have markings 1 and 2 on there, so it's got 3, 2, and 1. So we're gonna go 3, insert number 28 on here. We do number 2 and number 1, just like that. So the numbers facing you and they're correct, and we do need 4 toothpicks. We're gonna do 2 and cut them in half, and that puts you at 4 half toothpicks that are required on there. And then we start with 1. And they should go fairly easy. And usually if you got it beforehand, I would insert them all the way in. Show you just in a second. So I got number 2. And then number 3 right behind it. And I'll use the tool to push these toothpicks in, one at a time, all the way in. So you don't have to cut from both sides, you just cut from one side. And or if they break off, obviously you can cut from both sides, or push it in as far as it can go, flush with the surface. And careful with your fingers as you're pushing these in, just to make sure you don't puncture your fingers. So we got this assembly, and then we just slice the toothpicks from one end. And as you can see, I start the cut. Careful with the fingers and the knife, and then you can just break it off right at the edge, and it's going to be nice and smooth. And you can just clean it off a little bit with the either file or sandpaper, or just with the knife, clean that little surface. So got that assembly complete. Then it goes on the opposite end with the nose facing to the right. You just insert it in as far as it can go, and then we have a toothpick going through right in the middle. I'll give it a little bit of wax, because knowing that we had some issues of putting those in, I'm just going to give a little bit of wax on the toothpick, and aim it in and push it in, and this one goes in almost without a problem. So we do need to use number 4 of how much it sticks out on this end, and we're right there, right, number 4. And we do need to wax. One end is already waxed, then we wax the other end. And obviously that big gear does need some candle on it. So I'm gonna get a little bit of the bigger piece of candle, and I'm gonna wax all the gears. So that's what I was talking about. If you can just get a smaller candle, maybe not a tea candle, and just go and holding it, it's much easier than trying to put a wax from the tea candle on there. So, and I'm gonna go ahead and wax. Also clean off with the file if you got any of the fibers sticking out there. I did see one piece there, so I did clean it off. And here you go, we're almost all around. Makes it much easier when you have a bigger piece in your hands. Alrighty. Excess. And the assembly is complete. I'm gonna put it on the side after we clean all the excess. Going to the next page. We're at let's see, board number 4. Need number 32, 33. Here's 32, 33, and 34. Go ahead and push these out. And then this one with the arrows pointing clockwise. We put the little pieces. There's like a little round piece which goes on the outside. With the piece with the thinner goes right inside that gear. Thinner boss. And they're all the same, so they should go all right and pretty much the same way. Might have to wiggle it a little bit to get them in there, or just do them one at a time. I apologize. The two that are opposite themselves, they do go in one way, one direction, and then the ones on the other holes, they go the opposite direction, so they kind of fit a little bit better than I was trying to put it in. Just like that. And then we have this piece. There's a little slot and the teeth. Now make sure these teeth are facing the counterclockwise direction, and you just slide it off on the other end of the little assembly, just like that. We do need to clean off the fibers. And then toothpick goes right in. Wax it a little bit to push it in. And then the shorter piece ends on that with the teeth. And so I'm going to go from the opposite end so I don't have to go far. And then we use number 3 to measure it out. So I'm almost there, just so probably a small tiny bit. And we're pretty much perfect. And then we do need to wax the toothpick and these little teeth right here. So I already have a big piece of candle wax, so I'm gonna go ahead and wax these off a little bit. Lubricate them. Here we go, another assembly complete. We're going into the numbers next portion of the assembly. So we got pieces number 30 and 35, 2 30s and 2 35s in here. So I'm gonna go ahead and push this piece out first, and I'm gonna push it from the front face towards the back because of the fibers that are stuck in here. So just to make sure that it doesn't peel the big piece off, and then push these out. Once again, a little careful on these. I'd recommend to use the knife to pre-cut them, or you can just carefully, as long as you know where the connection points are at, push these out, make sure without breaking it, because some of the pieces are delicate. So almost got this one out, and then 2 number 30s. And both of these facing the same direction. And then we need the toothpick here, and they all going to be cut off from both sides. So I just go make sure that full thickness is on both ends. And you can use the tool to help you push it in a little bit. Further. Just a broken piece I'm pushing out of the help tool. And then one more we got with the 2 little number 30s in there. So I'm going to push it from the other side just to make sure that I don't need to push the little round pieces too much in. One and 2. And then the one in the center cannot be broken, so I'm gonna go ahead and use a new toothpick. Don't like the way that one looks, and I'm gonna put it in, and then it has to be on this end to fit in number 4 slot. Here you go, number 4 slot, and then these and this are getting chopped off. So I'm gonna get a knife to start it off. Don't put too much pressure on this piece. You don't want to break it off. And this little portion also, you don't want to get it broken. Nice and clean, and we got it all ready to go. Another assembly complete. So moving into the page number 12, and we got 2 pieces on the same board. Also this piece, I'll push it out from the front face towards the back to make sure that we have nice and clean fibers. As you might see right here, there's a little fiber that gets pulled, so you don't want it pull the other direction and on a good surface, and then push these out. So I've got 2 numbers 30s and 2 on the other side. This is a pendulum piece, and it's also somewhat fragile, so make sure you push it on a connection points just to get it nice and easy without breaking it. And then one toothpick, gotta use these two guys with the circles facing each other. So we're gonna put one on one side, and then pendulum, and we're gonna go ahead and same direction. All the way to these little two guys, and then pendulum on the other side. Doesn't matter if they match the direction. If they don't, probably look a little bit better or more interesting. And then the other two guys. Maybe a little bit too far. Let's see, the distance between them have to be between number 2 and 3, the outer edges of it. So I gotta push it in a little bit further. Separate it. Looks about right. Yep. That's a little bit too far. So again, you do have a spare, just in case. Shouldn't be. All right. So the distance between these two should match all around. All right. And then we're gonna slice the toothpick off. A little bit uncomfortable, but we're gonna get it eventually. There you go. Double check the distance, should be the same all around. And then we do need to wax. I would do recommend to file these two round pieces on the outside. Get the fibers off and connection points flat. This obviously, once again, it's a pendulum piece, so it might interfere with the operation. And then on the opposite side too. And then we do put a little bit of wax onto the toothpick right in the middle here. It's nice and waxed. Alright, and we can put this assembly to the side now too. Okay, next step, go ahead with the frame. So the first frame that we're going to do is the one that says Ugears on it. So the center pieces, push them out from the front. so they're not on the way. And then the part itself, push out from the back towards the front. Nice and easy all around. Try to hit all the connection points. Alright, so we got the part out. Then we got that number 47 piece, also nice and easy all around the connection points. Make sure you don't break. The pieces off. And we do need number 40s. They're all right here. There's one additional one and two number 37. So I'm going to put the whole block out. And that little piece also number 45 that we need. Alright, so number 45, clean off the fibers. Goes right here in the middle. We do number 40s. So these are tiny ones, so usually you can work them back and forth a little bit to get them out, and then use your kind of like tip of your finger to push them in. So we want the little round pieces outward, facing outward. So I'm gonna put one here. And you want it to go all the way in. And then one on the other side. And then I'm going to insert that piece into the main frame and get it flush. Once again, make sure it's all the way in. So it's going to stay in there. And then this assembly going to fit only one way. And I'll get four number 40s. So we got 4 left. So I'm not sure where the 37 go yet. So we got 4 more pieces. And then once again, looks like facing outwards there with the round pieces. Push them all the way in. And on this piece I'm gonna wait until I put it on frame, main frame, because I don't want to break the pieces off. Because they do look a little bit fragile. Alright. And then it goes right. So that one little piece, I'm going to push it in. Right when it's on the main frame. Alright, looks nice and beautiful. And we're going to go on the next page with number 37s. These little tiny little pieces. And they go right here, and this right next to the number 15 on the main frame of the timer. I'm going to use my file and just help myself push these out. They are tiny. Here you go. And then they go right for number 15, and they're going to be one is going to be next to the number 15 is parallel to the base, and then the other one, so the idea is to cover that hole, and then the other one is perpendicular, just like that. Alright, so we're going to put that frame on the side. I'm going to move into the next frame. Just number 36. Now, push it from the back towards the front. And then there is a little circular indication mark on the side. So this is the side where you can push the number 37s through and 40s. So we do need that number 44. Uh, 37s, 40s. The little round 45. And then looks like that's it for now. We're going to push it and put it on the side. So we're going to start with the 37s. In this case, there are 3 of them. Once again, I'm going to use my file to help myself out, or you can use a toothpick. I did start them off with a finger and just push them out. So we got 1 on this side, and then 2 on the opposite end. 1 parallel, the higher one, and then perpendicular, the lower one. Then we got this piece with the left right, make sure it's the right way. Clean out the fibers, anything excess you have, and then you got number 40s on this side. And we do need all 6 of them, so that's what I'm doing, pushing these out. And I start them off with the finger. I can see if they went through or not, and then just push it with the file out or with the toothpick. Just make sure you start them off, because otherwise you might break them. There you go. So we got the little 45 piece on the bottom, once again with the round portion facing outward. I do want to get these in first, or you don't have to, you can put it right on the assembly and just push them in. It does require a little bit of force, so a table is usually a pretty good support for you to get that force in. Here we go. Once again, careful, as the parts are fragile, so you don't want to break them or crack them. I don't want to put anything right in the middle here yet, except for a different number. And as you can see, I'm doing them right on the assembly. All right. Go to the next page, and we're number 42 goes right into that hole, and this is 42 is part of that little block on here, so I'm going to push the block out. That board is done. I can put it on the side. So number 42 goes in first, right in here, and then you push it all the way in. Make sure it's flush, so it's going to stick out on the opposite side. Here we go, a little bit of support, and all the way in. And then we got, next step is to assemble 40, 39, and 38, so we got 38, 39 and 40. These are tiny parts. So a little bit of a pressure. So we got number 38 is first, and then 39, and then there's a little lines on there, so it's kind of match them up. There's a little vertical lines, or horizontal if you turn it that way, but this little thing right here, it should be facing down. And then you put a number 40 with a round piece up, just like that. Let me get 39 first. Please start it, and then 38 right after. And all the way in. And then we got number 43 and 41. 41's first, and then we gotta lubricate, and there's a side with only line, and there's a side with two little circles drawn in the line. So that side, and on the edges we do need to put some wax. Just like that, and that goes, turn that inside out, goes right in here. And then number, the previous assembly, the little one, 40, 39, and 38, so there's also two circles that were facing outward, so you make sure they're facing towards you. You need to lubricate also like the little ding here and on the sides, and I would clean off the sides a little bit just to get that fibers off from the connection points. And a little bit of wax on the sides here, ding. And with these little circles facing you and a little ding down, just insert it into middle. And then push number 43 out, and that one goes and covers everything up, just like that. Okay. All right, off to the next step. We got two of the bases, or two of the parts for the frame ready, and just make sure, check that this one you can rotate back and forth from the back, the assembly that you just did. So now we're gonna go ahead and start assembling the timer, the frame. So we need pieces 48 and 49. They're on board number 4. So these are the go all the way in the base, and then 49 is on the right side, 48 is on the left with the little cutout slot facing further away from you. So you got the front face with Ugears on it, and they go all the way on the bottom. So we're gonna start with the front. As I mentioned, as you can see, the slot goes up towards the back. And then we go with the other piece, the back piece. The assembly, the little leaf goes on the outside. So with a little left, right, writing also facing towards the back. So and put these connections like that on the bottom. Nice and tight. So next step is this little two pieces. The last ones that we assembled, the little gears that are with little arrows here. This assembly goes on the bottom. Just right, two holes right here, and then it's the assembly is further away from you, so it's towards the back. So push these apart a little bit to get the toothpick in, just like that, and then they should be spinning nice and easy. And then the other piece goes right on top of it, also from the back. That's a little lip right here with the lip. So, and looks like I did assemble it. Should be like this. Does look like it's a mirror image. So let's double check the assembly. Alright, and that was my fault. So as you can see, I did not assemble it correctly. So I do need to bring, I did it from this side. So I do need to bring that toothpick and these two little guys on the other end. So it's fairly easy fix. Most of it is because it's mechanical assemblies. So what I'm gonna do is just push the toothpick towards the other end and put the little pieces on it on the opposite side. And then the toothpick, just slide it through and then remeasure it. We gotta do number 4. Just like that. So I'm gonna check the video is still running, make sure we're still operational. So number 4 is right here. Toothpick, so now that was a quick fix. And then come back to the assembly page. That's number 15, and just insert it in the hole right above the assembly that you just did. Also separate this a little bit, careful not to break them apart, and it should be one above the other one, so when you push it down it kind of locks the gear on the bottom if you try to rotate it clockwise. And then the next step is to insert number 50 right here, right into the gear with it cut out towards the front face, and it goes right in between that little assembly with the tooth. Alright, our first assembly is ready. Then we take one rubber bands, slice it, I guess I need to replace the blade on here. And then we'll do one nut on one end. I'll do like a double nut to make sure that it's nice and thick. one over the other just to make it a little bit thicker. Cut off excess rubber band. And then that goes onto the, it's just not going to be very comfortable, but onto the gear. There's a little slot on the gear where the teeth are kind of like slanted clockwise. So look for that slot and insert the rubber band right in there. Don't put too much pressure in, as you don't want to break this off. Especially with the toothpick, because that's the one that breaks more often. And as I was doing that, my tie got undone, my nut. So I'm gonna make another one and make it a little bit tighter, because it looks like as I was playing with it, it got removed from the rubber band. Alright. Once again, cut off the excess so it's not on the way, it's not sticking out and it looks ugly there. I'm going to use toothpick to help me out a little bit to hold that rubber piece down. Should probably do something else because my fingers don't fit in between the gears. Maybe it is a good idea to put that rubber band prior to doing the assembly, but here you go. Got it in. Push it a little bit to the edge, and then we'll get it rotated so it's on top. Uppermost point going from the back of the toothpick and then right into this slot right here with a little bit of a slack, so you don't want it too tight. There you go. So you got a little bit of slack here. Go in, then make a knot there too so it doesn't pull out easy. Try to make it as close as possible to the surface. And I would cut the excess of the rubber band just once again to make it look nice and pretty so it doesn't stick out much. Okay. Alright, so we're done with this side. Let me get a little bit more off. And as I was doing that, I untied another nut. Don't cut too close, just a mental note. Because if you do, the knot gets untied right away. Alright, and then I'm going to push it from the other side, then get that knot all the way to the surface. Here you go. Alright, so we got a little bit of slack there too. We're gonna go next assembly. We'll do a big gear with the arrow. It goes right in the middle, right at the center, all the way at the bottom here. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it from the side and split it a little bit, not too much, with the tongue above the other tongue. So just like that, so there's a little bit spin back and forth, almost 360 degrees. And next step is to do little assembly with round pieces here, and it goes all the way on the right, and then the assembly itself further away from you, so it goes on the bottom, most bottom holes on the right side that you can find. And then the next step is another rubber band, so we do need to cut it in half, tie a little knot on the one end, and then one maybe a good idea to once again put the rubber band prior to inserting the assembly. Into the frame. So let me get that piece. It looks nice and pretty. And I'm gonna take it out just for the ease of putting the rubber band on. So the rubber band goes right in this slot right here on the piece with the tooth, and then it goes from the outside onto inside. So I'm gonna go ahead and insert it just like that, and bring the knot all the way in, and then put the piece right back. So you gotta slide the rubber band right in between. There's like a little tooth and the flat piece, so I'm gonna slide it right in between them and reinsert it back in with the lip above the lip that is already installed, or tongue. No, the tongue above the other tongue. And then the rubber band goes over that assembly that we just, the little one, make sure it's in the hole, because in my case it's not. And then you can wrap it around the base as shown on the picture. I'm gonna go ahead and don't wrap it too tight, as we will need to readjust it, so just start it off as of right now, and then make sure that it's rubber band on the inside. It goes against the surface in between the tooth. I don't know, I can't really see it probably, and a flat piece. So there's a image of that right here. So that's what I meant. And then, as I said, just don't tie it too tight yet, the rubber band on the base. So just start it off, and then we'll readjust it later. So next, number 50 piece, another one. And then that one with the slot facing towards you, so it clears the gear, just like that. Then we insert the second biggest gear assembly with the little ones. I'm gonna clean it off a little bit because there's too much of wax on here. And then that goes right, if you look at the front, on the right hand side, with the little gears towards you. So it's gonna engage the gear, the big one, with the arrow. So we'll get that one up on. So you can see a little bit of a movement. I'm not gonna force it yet, because we do have a rubber band now. Then we have a centerpiece, which is this little arm, and that one with these three toothpicks facing towards the back. So now we're gonna go ahead and insert it, and that goes right into the holes right in the middle, in the center. And kind of like in between the two gears. So the second hole of it goes into that little tiny piece assembly, approximately where the letters L and R are. So and it's a little pendulum portion of it. And then gear with the arrow goes on the left side. So again, if you split them up a little bit, just make sure that if something falls out, you put it right back in. And then there is a gear without the arrow on it. Also with the gear towards the back, goes on the right hand side. Just like that. And then we got two number 51 pieces. And these pieces, there's a little thicker portion and a flange, I guess. So they do need to match themselves, and the thicker portion goes towards the back. So these little sluts, they're kind of closer to you than the back. So one goes on the right hand side, and the other one on the left. All right, next portion is to fish line, and the fish line comes on the little part right here. So just pull it off, push it off, doesn't matter, it's not attached. And then we need to get it off this board and onto the assembly, just the way it's shown on the pictures. So it's a little bit tough, but it's manageable. So get the full fish line off of it. You can push the part on the side because you no longer need it. So, and we're gonna go ahead and start from the right hand side. So start from this piece, and then on top. So you start here from the bottom, go over the top. So it comes out on the bottom, goes across, cuts across, comes back through the top onto here, the furthermost point, then goes on the bottom through onto the opposite end. So let's see if we can manage it. So, and do you need some of pressure, and then it does need to be very tight on there. As tight as you can get. All right. Goes on here. Apologize. We start from the innermost portion towards the back, and then go underneath. Alright, let's restart. So I'm gonna go on inside with a shorter piece, go right into the hole, right in there. Then wrap it around the piece. I'm gonna tie it as much as I can and go through the slot and across the whole assembly and to the opposite end, and a back slot. So underneath, feed it through, give it a little bit of pressure, pull it on it, and then wrap it around the assembly so it's nice and tight on there. So you wrap it, go on the opposite end, push it through, and then I would help myself a little bit just to push it all the way to the end of the slot. There you go. And then also feed it underneath, across, and into the opposite end. Make sure it doesn't overlap and it's parallel. There you go. Also pull on it with a little, and so it's nice and tight. Make sure you don't, and put it into here. And then the on the right hand side, just slide it underneath. Well, you can pull it out a little bit, slide the fish line in the inside the slot, and put the assembly back together so it's nice and tight. It's not going to go anywhere. And then they're nice and tight underneath, and they are feeding into the slots also, the bottom slots. And then you can cut excess and cut excess at the bottom. Okay, so our timer is almost ready. We have the, and now we put the pendulum on top and make sure, for a picture, it doesn't bend the fish line. So it does, then it's not a good thing. So it has to be nice and straight, maybe a little bit of the tiny bend on there. And then it has to sit nice and perfect and go nice and easy. Alrighty. Your next step, looks like it's all good and ready to go. And now we do need to adjust the timer. So the way to start the timer, and let's see, I think we're good. We're good. The little notes here, make sure it's not on the tilted surface, it's nice and straight, otherwise it's not going to work very nice. There's certain directions on how to adjust certain things up and down, so fix it, what's working and what's not working, and then if you do need to have some portions that are not working properly, the way to fix it. So let's go ahead and adjust the little rubber band here. So as I mentioned before, I didn't tie it up very well. So I'm gonna put a little bit, as I don't know what the timer is kind of putting right now, and make sure that it's at 0 the arrow. I do put a little bit of a pressure on the rubber band, and I'm gonna pull it with a little bit of force. So, and wrap it around, make sure it doesn't fall apart. Here we go. And then first thing, the way to start a timer is that little arm on inside. You just grab it and rotate it clockwise, and we start with the 10-minute. If you feel a little bit too tight, you might want to release the rubber band, but to me it looks fine, so I'm gonna leave it as is. And let's see. I'll remove the pendulum, so it does have a little bit of a movement. And you can adjust the movement on the back by bringing up or down, left or right. So let's see, I'm gonna go to the plus. The plus doesn't work, so I have to drop it a little bit down. And see if it operates. So usually first indication, if it doesn't operate too much, I don't have enough force on the rubber band. So I'm gonna go ahead with give it a little bit, unwind it a little bit. So we'll start with 5 minutes next time, so I don't have to unwind it as much. And all I'm doing is rotating a gear, that one on the left. So the timer's facing front, is facing towards away from me. So I'm just pushing in the gear a little bit, pushing it down to get it unwind. So as I said, and a lot of times the gears do need to set a little bit, so might not work, everything might not work perfectly from the start. So and here, just make sure that we are at 0, and we are. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna untie that rubber band again, give it a little bit more force, pull it a little bit tighter. So when we wind it up, it does actually force the gears to start moving. Maybe I shouldn't go wrap it all around yet. And we'll start with 5 minutes approximately. So as you can see, the operation's pretty much almost smooth. You can play around with adjustment a little bit. And I do see there's a little bit more slack again on the rubber band, so might want to readjust it. Alright, and now let's see if it works with the pendulum. So I'm gonna pause it, put the pendulum on there, which slows it down a little bit. So as you can see, everything is working nice and easy. Once again, a little bit of adjustment, a little bit more of adjustment on the rubber band. So I'm gonna take it off, get the arm timers out all the way to the 0 point again. So, and it does need to work itself in, so after a few tries, should work much smoother than in the beginning. So I'm gonna give it a little bit more force on the rubber band. Tight. Make sure it doesn't break, doesn't release. pendulum back on. Give it a little push. Adjust on the back. So I don't have the pendulum sitting nice and perfect. And it's not on a flat surface, so. It will eventually work itself in. So we do have the movement that we need and that we're looking for, and as I said, it's just basic adjustments here and there. So maybe rotating the bottom and adjusting the gears, making sure there is no interference from the fibers, and then it will work nice and smoother every single time. So try without the pendulum first. Looks like it gets stuck at the same location all the time, so I gotta check the gear, make sure. Looks like a bigger gear. Make sure there is no issues with the fibers. And adjust it right on the go. So we are at 0. Let's try again. I'm gonna do 5 minutes. As you can see, it goes a little bit faster because the pendulum is not there, so it doesn't have to carry the weight. And we got almost perfect operation all the way through. So, as I mentioned before, it does need to work itself in a little bit. Let's try with the pendulum. Make sure it's sitting on a fish line very nice and easy. Give it a little push. Do not put any wax on this ends where it attaches or sitting on a fish line, because it will just slide. It's not gonna rotate or spin around. So as you can see now, it's working. Now it's a matter of adjusting the timing. So the way you do that is you put it on 5 minutes. You time your 5 minutes on a regular clock. If it matches, you're good to go. If not, then you either release the rubber band, the one that I was adjusting right here on the right side, or tie it up depending on how short you are. So the timer does need to work itself in a little bit, so just keep on playing around with it until it works nice and smooth. But as you can see, it's nice and operational. So just cleaning off here and there, just make it look nice. Clean off the wax if you put it somewhere a little bit in excess of. And then, so that's the operation of the timer. Also, you can set up a little bit of bell on one side. So I'm gonna remove the pendulum so it's not, and finish the operation. So on this side, you do have a little bit of the smaller assembly, and that's what pretty much this one is for. So to wind it up, you just rotate it counterclockwise. And you can put like a little bell on there or something like that. So rotate it clockwise until as far as you can without breaking the rubber band, so it's gonna get locked by this little lip here on inside on one of the teeth. So when the timer, we'll restart the timer. When it reaches to the end, it will hit one of the tongue pieces, will hit the other tongue, release that little gear, and you might hear a little bit of a noise. So if you put like a little bell on there, it will indicate that the timer's up. And of course it had to stop right before then, but here we go. That's the noise that the timer is up. Once again, a little bit of adjustments, and we can try again. So I'm gonna wind it up, wind it counterclockwise. Restart the timer, put a little pendulum so it looks nice and smooth. Here we go. And as you can see, with every single time that I wind it up, it works a little bit better. So you don't need to give as many pushes anymore, and the gears are pretty much just working themselves. And once again, some adjustments here and there, and eventually we'll get working the way it's supposed to be. A lot of times it does give you text instructions of how to wax everything, and if something doesn't work properly or doesn't look proper way, then you can adjust it and readjust it until it gets working. Obviously it's a timer, it's a piece of work, piece of art, and it does need adjustments, just like a regular watch would need adjustments of the gears. So in my case, I might want to put a little bit more tension on the rubber band, just to make sure that it has enough force. Oh, here we go, timer's up. That it has enough force to push the gears in. Double up. So I got a couple seconds pre-warning. Probably one of the gears just slides off. So this is pretty much it. Any questions, please write me, comment, send email. The email is info@ugears.us. As I said, you can write a comment down right below the video in YouTube. I'll either answer it right there, or I'll send email if necessary, or request more information. So, and after you're done, make sure you do wrap the rubber band all around, because you don't want it to start slacking off after a few uses. And then it's just a regular rubber band that you can get at any, I guess, office supply store. So it's just an office rubber band. And so if it breaks with time, you can easily get another one at any of the stores that sells office supplies. So, and let's see, I'm just trying to put it on the side and slice it off so it doesn't stick out. Here we go. No, doesn't want to stay there. There we go. All right, so the timer is done, nice and pretty. You can see it on the picture here. And once again, let me know if any questions. It's ugears.us. That's our website. You can email us at info@ugears.us. Any questions, also welcome in the comments. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you. Bye.